most people define success by how much money they have. Abundance is largely how big your house is, like everything being good in your life. Jump in.
Because it's this distraction from the things we don't want to feel. And so we think the money is going to take away the pain.
That's it. That's it. So what I learned from you is thinking about life as a game to really help people understand they don't have to stay stuck in their challenges, even when it's something unthinkable for others.
Once we decide we're going to see those challenges and irritations as opportunity for growth,
Yeah.
and we can embrace those challenges and look for the gift, then we find the gift in those challenges.
Correct. And I found it after losing my daughter.
This is the Grief Talk Podcast with Vaughn Solis, helping you heal after loss and life's hardest hits. My guest today is Randy Lyman, author, physicist, entrepreneur, and expert in emotional intelligence and service-based leadership. With over 3 decades of experience and starting from humble beginnings, Randy built multiple 8-figure businesses, including an Inc. 500 company, earning multiple patents, only to discover that success without emotional alignment does not create real fulfillment or abundance. Facing emotional disconnection, Randy turned inward, igniting renewed purpose with greater impact. Today, and through his book, The Third Element, a #1 new release in motivational growth and spirituality, he shares principles and tools to help individuals and organizations transform from the inside out, turning emotional awareness and healing emotional patterns into authentic leadership, high performance, and lasting abundance.
So, Randy, I want you to pop in and say hello to my audience, please.
Hello, good to be here today.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So, Randy, you and I connected and have communicated a little bit. I got your book, The Third Element. I love it. We have to keep this to an hour audience today, but that's kind of okay. So we're going to kind of talk about the things that I think are important. I've been in metaphysics since 1982. So a long time. So when I was reading your book, it was familiar and, all that. So I want to set this up a little bit, Randy, because you're a physicist, an entrepreneur, an author, and have had many successes. I want to build this interview around the context of wealth, because you certainly had that. And what caught me to my eye about you is that the entrepreneurial huge success, 500 Inc. company, all of that. Listen, most people define success by how much money they have. And that's what I have really felt over all the decades I've been at this. Abundance is largely how big your house is, like everything being good in your life. Jump in.
Because it's this distraction from the things we don't want to feel. And so we think the money is going to take away the pain.
That's it. That's it. So what caught me to you was somebody, one, who has had so much success, but two, went, okay, I want to talk about emotions. So, audience, I want you to think about this, whether or not right up front you believe that your worth is rooted in your materialism, wealth, okay, however that's defined for you. And two, how well do you know yourself emotionally? Because these are the two pieces we're going to bring together. Randy's book, The Third Element, is a deep dive. I would say it will be a very deep dive for people that are new to this. And you write it beautifully, and you weave in everything that you talk about in terms of life as a game. So we're going to talk about, that was the piece that got to me, is to really understand life as a game. We're going to talk about this as if someone has basically no knowledge about going deeper and connecting to source, because that's the other piece, which is millennial old knowledge. We're here to connect to source. And the way you share your information based on your experience as a physicist, okay, so there's the science piece, right? And entrepreneur, there's the success. And then you go, but wait, I'm still not happy. There's a huge missing piece. So that could be you, audience. Okay. I don't know if you've had Brandy's level of success, but being vulnerable about it. So we're also going to talk about the vulnerability piece. And
Power in being vulnerable.
exactly. But culturally, why we think that people who are emotional are reactive instead of being very responsive to their life, and how a person can get comfortable with understanding it's okay to actually be vulnerable in their emotions. So that's what we're going to tackle today, Randy. You good with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump in.
Okay. So, audience, I just wanted to give a little statement what you say, Randy, from your book. Again, I want you to think about this, audience, as we move through this interview. So, Randy, you state that our minds work tirelessly to try and make sense of the world around us by sometimes telling ourselves stories in order to create a false sense of safety. True, survival brain. And when our minds build stories about the circumstances we experience, emotions are created within us in relation to those stories.
Based on our hormonal response within our body, a wide variety of hormones give us a physical sensation to guide us towards something good or away from something bad. And those feelings are valid only in that moment.
Right. So we're going to dive into that as well. I just want people to understand this. They're living life, I'm going to just really paraphrase here, emotionally based on what they have attached to their stories. Okay. And this isn't even yet getting into the part that we create them all. And I don't know if we're going to have time for that. I just want you to understand your life as a story is part of the game, and it can be changed how you are perceiving your circumstances and your reality and your challenges. Okay. The other thing I want you to really speak to a little bit, but acknowledge here, and you say that the emotional aspect of humanity is overwhelmingly overlooked, even when it comes to spirituality. That was a big piece for me because I've been talking about this for decades. Like, we got to look at the emotional piece. I don't know if you know, Randy, but I lost my daughter to suicide in 2005. And so,
Know that.
right. And so I tell a lot of my guests, because through agents and even connecting on our own, people don't have time to even really kind of go, well, listen, who am I talking to today? Well, you are talking to somebody, Randy, who has been in metaphysics for 44 years. And it's been 2/3 of my life. And I lost my daughter to suicide when I was 23 years into my journey. So guess what that did? Yeah, I had to rethink everything, not become unspiritual, because that was the core of who I was, but it challenged me to question every leader. The Secret was really big at the time, and you know what The Secret taught, with all due respect. And many people got into that and quit because their life wasn't becoming abundant fast enough and all this stuff. Law of attraction, all that, everything you teach as well. So I've been around the block a number of times with this, and my teaching is very much rooted now in metaphysics, but really, really, really with one of the hardest losses, if not the hardest loss a human will be asked to bear, which is losing one or more of their children. Do that when you're in that much pain. So that's what my podcast is about. Okay. So that's for you to understand when you are talking about, and we're going to talk to the lowest common denominator here, which is somebody has no experience and might be suffering the same thing in grief, might be suffering another loss, might be just in so much trauma and grief from childhood experiences. So it's really, that is the context in my platform is, life isn't easy. So how do we apply these concepts? Thinking about doing it in the biggest challenges a person could face. Having said that, I do understand and respect that there are a lot of people that don't have extreme losses, and great, and some people sail through life, and we teach what we know. So, but just bearing in mind, and if that hasn't happened to you, just bearing in mind, I want to shape this a little bit for people that's where I come from. And but I value your teaching. So that's why I don't have too many people on my show, like not just everybody. I need to learn something from them. So what I learned from you is thinking about life as a game. And we're going to have a little bit of fun with that. And the things I've shaped it to is to really help people understand they don't have to stay stuck in their challenges, even when it's something unthinkable for others.
Once we decide we're going to see those challenges and irritations as opportunity for growth,
Yeah.
and we can embrace those challenges and look for the gift, then we find the gift in those challenges.
Correct. And I found it after losing my daughter, who is 22, and she remains to be my greatest teacher. And we, in fact, enjoy real life afterlife communication since last summer. We've always had it, but literally, I just went public with a podcast this week on my AirTag as a phone. She does call me regularly, and it's the coolest thing. So I've already established quite a practice, but in spirituality and all of that stuff. But I always stay open to new information. So anyway, Randy, let's get to it. I love how you ask, if our emotions are scary, useless, and shameful, why do we have them? Good question. And then what you just said, the third element, your book, that practice invites us or calls us to see our challenges as what you just said, gifts, opportunities, and realize the power and potential of divine love as we reconnect to source. That's essentially your work. I wanted to start with the 2 rules you have. And are these the game of life rules, or just 2 rules in principle for your spiritual practice and anybody else's?
Only 2 rules that are absolute
Yeah.
in our universe and our human experience. That's it. Everything else
Okay.
is pretty much a humanly contrived rule. These are the rules that God gives us. And if I may,
Sure.
first one is love wins. When we respond to any challenge, any situation from a place of love and not fear, we can find a lasting solution. If there's any fear involved in our approach, we will not find a lasting solution. So first rule is love is most important and love wins. Second rule is God, source, the universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it, has no expectations for us and no judgment. But there are consequences. So all of our lives are co-created for us with the law of attraction, moment to moment, based on resonance with our thoughts, resonance with our action, and resonance with our emotions, both real-time emotions. And because emotions are bigger than time and space, any unprocessed emotions from our past are still vibrating and interacting with the law of attraction to attract situations to us, to mirror those old vibrational emotional wounds. And primarily because God wants us to heal and wants us to let go of those wounds. So that's what our irritations are for, is to remind us of the opportunity to heal. So again, no judgments, no expectations, but absolutely consequences, both bad and good.
Now, I want to be clear for people that don't like the term God, that they have their own. Are you referring to this also as source? Yes.
Source. I refer to it in the book as source because when
Yes.
I first wrote the first version, a friend of mine says, "Well, you can't. If you say God, it's going to turn a lot of people off. It turns me off." He said. So I said, "Well, you call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it source in the book because source, by definition, means where everything began."
Yeah.
And I also say in the book, well, just pretend that there is no source. And still, if we're positive, we're going to have a better life. If we're negative, we're not going to have as good a life. But I'm assuming, and I write in the book, that there is something bigger than us that helps create our world for us. That's what source is to me.
Yes, wonderful. Source for me over the decades has evolved to, well, I refer to source as God mostly. I grew up Christian. I'm not a practicing Christian because when I became very spiritual, to me it was just I didn't want the confines of the Bible, and so to me it's just this power, this power that we cannot see, we cannot understand. And it does guide us in conjunction with so many other things. So we're not going to define that audience today. When you think about it, I just want you to think about if you believe in a power that's greater than you as the human, and I love how you say human, that's us, being is that other part.
The spiritual part of us.
Right? What is that audience for you? If you're a newbie, have you had synchronicities? Have you had things happen you can't explain? Where's that coming from? Randy, do you want to add to that?
Well, we are spiritual beings
Yes.
on a human path, playing this game, this limited game, this complex game of being human. But at our deepest core, we're spiritual. We forget that. We are supposed to forget that.
Yeah.
And the game is to find our way back to that through all this, everything everything chaotic is illusion. The only thing that's real is love, and the rest is all illusion. And once we get to a place of understanding that and realizing that, not judging ourselves, not judging the people around us, and becoming clear in our thought, clear in our actions, and clear in our emotions, we can create a beautiful life. It works.
I agree. So I'm gonna just recap, audience. So 2 rules: source is divinely good and wants what's best for us. 2, everything we experience, good, bad, or otherwise, is co-created for us and responds to us as part of law of attraction. Now, when I say co-created, I just want to say I believe, Randy, real quick, that we designed our lives before we even got to the incarnation with contracts, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And how we respond to that incarnation. Everything we experience is guided by the law of attraction. And like you said, and you can tell people, what's the law of attraction really quickly for the newbie? What is it?
Law of attraction is things that are like each other are attracted to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Now we learn in science with electronic charge and magnetism, then opposites attract, but really with harmonic resonance at the deepest levels, things that are similar are attracted to each other. Now, it's not just our thoughts, it's not just our actions, and the third element, as I describe in the book, our emotions, from my experience, is absolutely the most most powerful component in interacting with the law of attraction. But people talk about our thoughts only, and we don't talk about our actions because they're pretty obvious. If I stepped into another room, I manifested that reality of being in the other room through my actions, but it's still being created for me as I walk into the room.
Exactly. So, law of attraction, we're not here to specifically talk about that, audience, but it's huge. There's tons of work on it. You go deep into your book really about law of attraction, but that's science, right, Randy?
Yes, it is. From two different occurrences in 1927, both independent from each other. One of them was Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, and the other one was the double slit experiment. And what these two groups of scientists, Heisenberg as an individual and the others doing the double slit, what they realized was that what we see as solid matter is really energy until it's called into action by either being observed or being interacting with other matter. So everything is only energy. We know this at a nuclear level, and it's playing the part of our solid reality so we can play this game and have this experience in this hologram.
Right. And so to be clear, thoughts are part of that, right? Energy. Thoughts are energy. Our emotions are energy. We are energy. So it's natural. I did want to clarify, as a physicist, the law of attraction, we talk about it in energy, but is it also the vibration that there's a difference in vibration between certain things and good, bad?
Because the vibration is the energy and the energy is the vibration. And so that whatever that energy is has its signature, and its signature is its vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a complex vibration. If you get into Fourier analysis and other things, which we're not going to do today, but if you get into deeper into the science, it's all complex waves, but it is all harmonic resonance. It's vibrating energy.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking this is people sitting there, miserable, stuck, hopeless. We live in a world that's creating a lot of challenges for us to think about ourselves, the world at large. I'm in Canada. Pretty dismal for some people, okay? So a lot of mental health problems. So you get somebody and they're sitting there going, okay, I really want a better life. I really want a better life, but God, my life sucks. This is bad, that bad. Everything's negative. I want you to just tell them, if you can quickly, what's happening at a vibrational level for the law of attraction to respond to them with more problems, more challenges, things breaking down, bad relationships. What's happening?
If I'm frustrated, then the law of attraction says, oh, frustration. I will bring you more of what you're feeling. I'll bring you more of what you're focusing on. I'll bring you more of what you're talking about and thinking about. And so it says, okay, I'm feeling disappointed. And then I feel that. Well, the universe brings me more things to be disappointed about. And then now I'm really disappointed. Oh, great. We'll bring you more of that. Instead, I can say, hang on, I'm going to try something new. I'm going to suspend my doubt. And I'm just going to pretend I'm happy and I'm going to fake it till I make it. Now that sounds really shallow, but I tell you, it's a great place to start. And here's the something I talk about in the book. if we can find things to be grateful for, I'm alive. I'm healthier than my neighbor. I have a roof over my head, or at least I have a doorway to sleep in. And we become grateful for that. Now suddenly we're vibrating at a level of thankfulness and gratitude. And that is the cheat code to go from this sucks to, hey, this over here is really small, but it's still good. And then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah. So really simply, audience, if you're in that that negative headspace, everything in your life is negative, you could have the nicest house and the greatest job and you're still miserable.
I was that guy.
You were that guy. And so really quickly though, switching it, because there's going to be those, I don't believe that. Switching it just for a moment changes the vibration in milliseconds. As soon as you do the switch, the vibration changes, right?
Yes, and it doesn't take that long for the law of attraction, for reality being created for us to respond. It responds immediately. Now, we don't see it in huge leaps forward,
No.
but it's happening right away, and it's preparing our future, a better future for us, as soon as we're able to imagine a better future. Now, we have to also take the actions, and we also have to heal our emotional wounds. But as we do that, there's really no delay except our belief and our emotional processing.
Yeah. So listen, audience, one of the great quotes I love from Louise Hay, if you don't know her, look her up, is life is good because I expect it to be good. Okay, there you go. And just think about what your thoughts are. And like you said, it becomes, I think, a case of disciplining our mind to really, really shift from this isn't so bad. Are you a person that is a, glass half full, glass half empty? I never even thought about it, but when I lost my beautiful daughter, I understood immediately I am a solution-oriented person, glass half full, and I was so conditioned already to be looking for goodness in the experience. That does not negate all the pain and all that kind of stuff, but I was continuing to look for ways that I could make my life better and not make that experience so horrible that that's what would define me.
You transformed your experience, and that transformed your life. We
Yeah.
find what we go looking for.
Yeah. So, but I do want to say, Randy, do you think this is a daily practice? Because I literally do.
Well, absolutely. And I tell people I've been on my path for 36 years, and I hope I'm halfway through.
Maybe you're only a third through because I want to live long. I want to live long.
It's ongoing, and that's
Yeah, I know.
and so, and I talk about this in the book, as you know, God is boards.
Yeah.
If you're living where everything's wonderful all the time,
Oh,
then I want some excitement. I want something new, and that's why we're here. This is
Yeah.
exciting. Now it's damn challenging, and it's messy, and it can really hurt, but it's not boring.
yeah. Now everybody's going to want to know, Randy. Come on, you were making mega bucks, right? With your companies.
Yeah.
People are going to want to know. Okay, so because they think, oh, come on, if I'm rich, everything's going to be great. I'm going to have a big house. I'm going to have a deluxe car, and I'm going to travel, and I don't have to work unless I want to. All those things. How about you clear that mistake up for folks and tell them what it was you discovered from having it all and still not being happy?
So I was still pretty young, but at the age of 28, I started my path, still at 30, and I had multiple million-dollar businesses. I can travel any way I wish to, and I had everything I need. I was living comfortably, had the cars, had everything, but that didn't change how I feel. That didn't change my my outlook every day when I get up. If I was worried about my business, even though I'm making money, my patterns were saying, oh my God, this is not enough. I need to do more. The next step is going to make me happy because I'm not really happy now. And I believe in my mind, this next step's going to make me happy. When I stopped and I realized what was keeping me from my happiness was my emotional pain I was avoiding. And I stopped and I embraced the pain and I cried the tears and I dug in deeper and I dug in deeper and I flushed out. I let all that emotional pain come through over time. Then what happens is when we let go of that painful emotional energy we're holding on to, love replaces what was there. And love is our natural state. But when we grow up as children, we take on this idea that we're supposed to be somebody different, and we take on trauma that we don't let flow through us. and it keeps us from being our true self. And that doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to be remembering our trauma. It doesn't feel good to have worry and just think with our mind that the next step will make us happy. So that's where I was. And eventually, when I met Maria in 1989, and she helped hold a space for me and guide me through a lot of my emotional release. And as I let go of the pain by embracing the pain, and love poured in and my life improved.
We're not going to dive deep because you do talk about Maria in your book. I just want to say we need guides along the way. So again, keeping this to people who are brand new to this or on the way and maybe frustrated, your leaders, your teachers will come to you when you are ready for the next bit of information, right?
Set the intent. When we ask, it will be given. So we set the intent. I'm ready to learn. I want a guide. I don't know who they're going to be. I just ask for the best who fits my situation and my experience the best today, and I surrender to what Source believes is best for me.
Yeah.
I am out of nowhere, whether it's 3 hours or 3 months, it will happen pretty quickly.
Yeah, I believe, Randy, I want you to talk about the game of life a little bit here because just to set it up, so I believe, as I said, we contract what we came for, but we don't remember. And so the game of life, I know. And so the game of life, I want to set the stage for this. The game of life is, and it reminds me of a board game, and you talk a lot about it in the book. It's great. We're going around this board, so we're going through our life, and you can, I don't know, I would look at those lessons going around, or the board, the game, all my lessons, all my experience. I look at life as chapters, and various things, life change. It depends what you bring into your life to learn, but at the root of everything, I've always looked at, there's something I need to learn from this. And so I love what you say, set the intent, because we will be asked, I'm going to ask if you believe this, we will be asked to deepen our knowledge the further we get into our practice. Do you think so?
Absolutely, because we're not given more than we're ready to receive.
Yeah.
We're not given more pain than we're ready to receive.
Yeah.
We're not given more guidance than we're ready to receive. The law of attract, like attract likes, takes us in small steps. We don't jump from between 1 to 10. We don't jump from a 4 to a 7. We go from 4 to 4.5.
Yeah.
And then from 4.5 to 4 3/4, and then to 5. And we incrementally, like attracts like, we step our way. But if we're trying to jump too far, the vibrational gap is too big, and the resonance, the harmonic resonance, will not make the attraction happen.
Yeah. What do you want to say, Randy, about people setting intentions and setting goals, and, like, I'm on this path, I got it. And they're intending for things that they're really not aligned with, that they didn't come to this life to experience. What do you want to say about people becoming more aligned with purpose and things and people that they really do want in their life, which is not easy to really figure out for a lot of people? You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Absolutely. So I absolutely disagree with a very famous channel who says avoid emotional pain. I absolutely disagree with that. I say that our emotions are guidance in the moment. Once the moment has passed, the energy stays, but the guidance is no longer valid. So if I have a pain, a frustration, an irritation, I want to dive in and feel that underlying emotional pain as deeply as I can, because the emotional energy is like gasoline in a metal can. I can store gas in a metal can for 20 years, and when I pour it out, it's still volatile and it still burns. But once it's burned, it's gone. Now, we can't always burn the whole can off at once. It's like peeling the layers of an onion, and we peel it a layer at a time. We pour out a little bit of the gas and the emotional energy at a time. But every time we release it, it's gone forever. And thermodynamics, this is the first law of thermodynamics in physics.
Love it.
Energy is neither destroyed nor created, or created nor destroyed, excuse me. And so when we have a mental reaction, our body creates hormones, we feel that energy, that physical energy in our body, we then store that if we don't release it. And the only way to heal emotions is through our body in the moment. Our mind is never in the present moment, so we can't process emotions, which only come through all emotions only come through our physical body in the present moment. And that's why Eckhart Tolle talks about the present moment. Now, he doesn't go into emotions like I do, but the people who say avoid your emotions, no. This is going to seem like it doesn't work. It's counterintuitive. It is the biggest gift we can ever have, is to be brave enough to feel the pain to cry the tears. I'm a 64-year-old man. I have no shame in crying the tears of my own emotional pain and letting it go. And that's where the power is.
How wonderful. So I, just to be clear, have never come across anyone that says avoid emotions. So that just tells you in my reality, it's all about emotional work. And I've been frustrated. I became very frustrated when I became bereaved in 2005 because I wasn't allowed to show my emotions and be authentic as a bereaved mom. So that my root I became an author of 3 books, and the root of all of my work, became very much about that. What you're saying, you're presenting it a little differently. I'm presenting it from the bereavement side, but the authentic, genuine side. And by the way, the word authentic is being thrown around too much. So I love being truthful and honest and genuine with who we really are. And that is the biggest frustration in the grief world, is we have to hide our stuff. We have to hide our pain.
No, we don't want to hide it. And also, when people talk about the law of attraction, don't think negative thoughts. Don't deal with your negative because it'll bring you negative. No, embrace it, work through it, pour out that emotion, burn it off. It gets out of the way. Now our thoughts are more effective. Our actions are more effective. But we have to embrace those emotions that are holding back. I look at it this way. So we can have our mind on track, full throttle. We can have our actions on track, full throttle. But if we have emotions we need to feel that we're not feeling, that's putting the brakes on the situation. And we got to release those brakes. And the only way to do that and move forward is to embrace it and heal it. It's messy. It hurts. It's not fun, but it's really freaking powerful.
Yeah. Now, I want to say, and Randy, you're probably going to concur with this, work with someone, folks, if you are afraid to tackle stuff. I'm going to put a plug in for my Living Meditations channel. I started in 2017, bunch of meditations. I'm an angel channel, since 2006. And so I just live with angels in my life. That's it. And so I've done that. But having said that, go and work with people to guide you through the toughest parts. And I also am an advocate to make people aware there might be traumas and things you can't deal with, and that's okay. I'm not dealing with the trauma of my daughter's suicide. Okay, not yet, because I haven't found anyone that would be able to help me with, well, I did find one person, but you have to be ready to embrace your changes, your healing. And I believe, Randy, and I want you to talk a little bit more about this. I believe that as you embrace vulnerability, let's turn to vulnerability here, emotional vulnerability and surrender. When you are able to, I say, take just one little thing. If you got a great big thing, a childhood trauma, is something that just...
It'll wait. It will wait. It'll still be there.
It'll still be there. No, take a frustration of the day. Start with something. You might be able, I'm talking to the audience now, you might be able to work with somebody who's offering meditation, somebody, because there's a lot of people in this state, Randy, that don't have money to go to therapy, don't have money to go to self-help courses and retreats and so on. And by the way, most, if not all, of our healing is very private and comes to us in our moments that we are alone and reflective. And so you've got to make the space to be reflective for yourself, audience. Randy,
and not judge ourselves, not have high expectations of ourselves. We don't have to do it perfectly.
Right.
Don't judge yourself. Just say, I'm going to take this any way it comes. I'm going to find a way to love myself, and I'm going to accept the love that's coming through for me, because it's there for us when we allow it to.
Let's go back to a rule. Source is divinely good and wants what's best for us. Call it Source, God. That is a fact. Let's talk about that a little bit here, Randy. We must, because healing is self-love. That's it. I'm telling you, as a bereaved mom for 20 years, 21 in July, honest to God, losing a child or any other horrendous trauma or loss, it will give you years and years and years and years of the opportunity to stop berating yourself, to work out all the lessons, to work out all the emotions, negative ones, how much you hate yourself, all the regrets, everything you did wrong, etc. I'm telling you, choose your experience and use each one of those emotions as it comes up. I'm going to offer this, and Randy, you say what you want to do. Use each one to work on self-love, and tell them if you agree with that or have another technique, and how they can sort of almost discipline themselves to believe it.
No, I'm going to look at it from a different angle, which I think is still being with what you're talking about.
Please do.
I had to realize and become comfortable with the fact that we all, and I, have an inner child. Now, my inner child loves to drive fast, loves to take risks. My inner child is where my joy comes from, my anticipation of good things, where my creativity comes through. So I don't let the inner child make important decisions. I let my higher self, through my intuition, do that. But the inner child is a huge part of us. And so once I realized, wait a minute, this is real, and I embrace that child, that's also where our pain resides. That's where our joy and our pain resides. And so when people can say, well, there is a part of me that understands and feels joy different than my mind does. And there is a part of me that feels grief different than my mind does. Find a way to listen to our inner child, give it them, him or her, a name, listen to them and tell them you love them, and talk to them as if they're not part of your thinking mind. And that may sound crazy to people, but I'm a scientist. I live in the real world. And for me, the real world is all about the inner child is really powerful and really helpful. And that's where I think people can find the most healing the fastest, is just talking to that part of themselves that is waiting to be recognized.
See, I knew I had you on the show for a reason. Okay, now I'm just teasing you. Anyway, okay, the inner child. Now, people have been talking, teachers, for decades about inner child, okay? But you're bringing something in, and my mind is thinking here. So here's a question for you. Do you think that as a child, now I want to clarify, what do you think the inner child is? Is it the emotions from childhood that we literally experienced in this life? And it's all stored from all the pain and hurt, or even false beliefs we developed as a kid, because most of us weren't allowed to speak and be heard. Now, so I want to, first of all, what do you think the inner child is? And then I have a follow-up.
It is the purest form of our human experience that is connected to source at a higher level, not through intelligence necessarily for information, but intelligence in the way of feeling love, feeling connection to other people. We can think we like somebody, but when we feel that person and we meet somebody and we're comfortable with them, and then we can be happy and we can be our genuine self, that's inner child. That pureness that comes through when a baby is born, that pureness is there until the environment, the parents and the neighbors and the brothers and sisters in the environment beats a message into us. We are a pure inner child until we're reshaped. And then we have to, as we get older, let go of all those imprints and become our true self again.
Okay. So audience, I'm just going to sort of paraphrase for the audience. So, because I'm learning this for how you're seeing it. So our inner child is that perfection, a baby. Think of yourself as pure essence. And you're right. They are. So that's why when we have a baby, we feel a love we've never felt before, because we're being reconnected in physical form with that pureness, what you're just talking about, that pure energy, until all the crap starts. So
exactly.
What I want to ask you is if you could explain. So again, when people, and I don't think we think of ourselves as a baby, but I've heard some teachers, and I've actually done this, tell you, get a baby picture of yourself, get a baby picture of yourself, keep it somewhere, put it I've tucked mine in a book where I'm so happy. And it's before all the stuff starts. And I'm still a relatively happy person, by the way. But I'll expand a little bit just for my point of view on this pureness. That's what we've chosen to come in. That's still who you are in this life. So there's the spiritual essence, the soul part of your being. You are also physical. But I believe that we have all of that can be expressed and experienced in physical if we can reconnect to it. Yes?
Yeah, it comes together beautifully, but our ego has to be willing to partner with our higher self through our intuition. I talked about in the book how it took me time to accept the fact that I was intuitive and then build that up over time. And it took me time to accept the fact that there's an inner child and create the relationship with the inner child, because I didn't want a child to be running my life, but it's not one runs it together. It's a balanced partnership.
Yeah, and one visual I had many, many, many years ago in my earlier bereavement was to imagine ourselves at whatever age in this life as in the palm of your hand. I'm holding for the audio my palm up, and imagine yourself in that source is you in the larger body, and you are in the palm of source. And it's kind of like a parent holding a baby or anybody else holding that brand new baby.
Great description.
But you think of yourself in that palm, and what would source want for you? What would you want in protection and security and safety for that little baby you are? And that's another little visual I'll offer to folks that really helped me. Now, and you got to remember to return to it because we will forget. So,
Hey, but let me say something. So what's wrong with having God protect our adult self the
Yeah.
same way he would protect our child self? It's all there. That energy's there, all parts of us.
Good point. It's about believing. In my simplest form, I really think it's about believing, Randy.
This is a big part of the experience, as you said. And I worked through a lot of that this last summer, and it changed my life and really helped me. So it is a huge part of our evolution.
All right, let's talk about it for a little bit. Going to dig deep, and I'm gonna have you follow up on that. So here you are, super successful dude. I'll call you dude because of your cowboy hat. No.
Okay, I'll go with it.
I'm just teasing you. Anyway, super successful entrepreneur, all this stuff. And even up to last summer, 2025, you're working on your deservingness. Now, that's why? What's going on?
Because I had it mentally. I have created companies that have after I've sold them and all time's gone on, done well over $1 billion or a couple billion in sales and all that.
Yeah.
I've served many, many millions of customers. I've done a lot to serve humanity because I wanted to serve.
Yes.
And so I understood that I deserved. I didn't feel that I deserved because of the experiences I had when I was very young, and I didn't perceive the attention I was receiving as I being deserving. So my perception was I was not deserving, and I had built that story around my experience when I was young, and I held on to that story at an emotional level. Intellectually is one thing, but since I went through that emotional release this last summer, a lot of things have opened up for me that I couldn't get through with my mind alone.
So you raise a very important point. The story we tell ourselves, the beliefs we adopt from any age, they do not go away unless we acknowledge them, embrace them, work our way through those emotions and feelings, and then surrender it and open ourselves up to the goodness we really do deserve. Would you agree with that, Randy? Is that what you're saying?
I agree with that. And I want to add one other thing. So I don't talk about emotions and explain everything about emotions and focus on emotions because I'm naturally an emotional person.
Okay.
That's not why I do it. I do it because that's the way the universe is put together. That's the lever to pull to improve my life. That's the lever to pull to improve my relationships, my abundance, my health, my wealth, all that. So I work on all three elements: my mind, my body, and my emotions. But again, I don't say this because that's naturally who I am. I had to learn this. And as I learned it, and as I adapted to being more emotionally aware and more fluid in my emotions, the rewards are just so big. And that's what I want. That's the reason I wrote the book. I want other people to understand this, to employ the tactics and the techniques and such, and the understanding that I have, to improve their life, because every one of us has a reason to be hopeful.
Yeah.
And every one of us can find ways to improve our life. And that's what I want people to experience.
Yeah, it's really, I want you to explain the bones of the third element. What really is the third element? Break it down a little bit for the folks. And they'll get you, listen, buy the book, guys. It will require, I just want to say, it will require commitment and probably revisiting parts of it.
Yeah, just read it over and over. It'll be there.
Every great book does that. Every great book does that. So don't be put off by it. So explain the third element.
Okay, so absolutely everything in our universe fits into one of three categories: thoughts and information, physical body and the physical world, and our emotions. Our feelings are part of our emotions, but our emotions. And that's it. There is nothing outside of those three categories. So I call that third category of our emotions, I call it the third element. It is the third element that of our experience that the law of attraction is creating our world in response to. And so that has been so long. People talk about our thoughts. We don't talk about our actions because our actions are so obvious,
Mhm.
but we've talked for over 100 years now, Think and Grow Rich and such, and The Secret and everything else about our thoughts.
Yes.
What I've been looking at for about 34 years now is I'm just wanting to say, no, you can't ignore your emotions. That's the most powerful part. And so now I don't have to do that anymore. I have the book, and people can buy the book, and they can get it on Kindle for dirt cheap. And
Yeah.
they can watch my podcasts on this podcast and others
Yeah.
and realize, wait a minute,
Yeah.
nothing is random. I'm responsible for my own life. I want to
Yeah.
blame, but when I stop blaming and I
Yeah.
look for solutions and I
Yeah.
change myself, now I'm empowered.
And again, we're just talking tip of the iceberg here, folks, just to give you, um, basic surface information. Even what you just said, I'm responsible for my life. Yeah, a lot of people don't want to be responsible for their life, and I do a lot of work in self-responsibility. Go look at a ton of my coaching episodes, folks, as well, because I do a lot of work in that. Because here's the thing, when something bad happens to us, we don't want to say, I created that. No, somebody did it to me. Somebody did it to me. The world is bad. Life's bad. Everything sucks. Let's talk about being responsible, Randy.
Okay, so 40 years ago, that was me. And so I tried to change everything in the outside world. I fired people. I got upset. I tried to set up boundaries. I tried to do all that. Now, sometimes it was warranted. But once I learned to wait a minute, let's look at myself first.
Mm-hmm.
What's my irritation? What's bothering me? Where am I blaming? And how can I find an emotion within me related to this exterior challenge? Well, then I found that most of the time, the solution wasn't changing the other person. The solution wasn't discipline. The solution wasn't boundaries. The solution was emotional release. And I'm going through this in some challenges in my life right now today. I have some things that are coming up that are irritating. They're frustrating. So what do? I do breath work. I go for a walk. I meditate. I journal. I find a way to feel that pain. And then the problem, bam, it's just gone. And for me, that's not magic. That's the way the universe works. But if somebody says, well, Randy, that doesn't feel real, try it. Suspend your doubts. Try it. And so we all have the ability to improve our life once we stop blaming.
Yeah. And so really, in a nutshell, folks, let's not discount the importance of the mind and what we're thinking. Because if we think we're a great person and we have a great life and we can be happy, even if it's not within our reach right now, but it's all there. It's our thinking, our thoughts, our beliefs, and so on. Everything is in the emotional healing, though, because that's what traps us, in my view. If we don't fix it, those thoughts, those beliefs, our mind is going to be cluttered with all the negativity. Do you think?
If I go back to, God, I don't know, it's almost 20 years ago now, to somebody, a manager in my company, one of the people who work with me, and they managed a department.
Yeah.
I could not get their act together. And so I said, I'm going to look at myself. I worked through my emotions. And suddenly this person who was not doing a good job, who was not competent, they became competent. They started doing a great job. Their department improved. And it wasn't because of my thoughts. It wasn't because of my communications. It wasn't because of my actions. The improvements I had in their department was because I worked through my issues. Now, people say, well, that can't be connected. At an energetic level, as physics is proving, everything is connected.
Yes. Let's talk briefly about the ego, because I want to clarify. Are our thoughts and beliefs related to ego then?
Yes.
Okay.
So the ego is that part of us that is our personality. It thinks, it has desires, it has goals, and it has things that it wants. And we need that, and we need it to protect us. And we need it to have, for Source to have unique experience through our free will. But if we let only ego run the show, then there's problems. But if our ego partners with our higher self and partners with our child self, and our ego finds balance, then it becomes beautiful. And the funny thing is, our ego, our mind, will protect us from everything except itself.
Okay, maybe I'll title the episode this. Anyway, I want to just clarify again for the audience, further to what you just said. The role of the ego, this is from your book, is to help us feel secure and stable. And so when we look at that, and I've done other episodes with other people who work an awful lot in survivor brain, we need to survive. And so we're not going to talk about all the parts of the brain. I've done other episodes. You can look on internet, about all the different parts of the brain and what they're doing. But suffice it to say, the ego is there. And you say, here's what I love. It works in the realm of the intellectual and material, that it perceives as part of self and the parts we can control. But it also pushes us to want more, forgetting our divine selves and avoiding our emotions. And that is key to what we're just talking about. So if we're trapped in ego, and I would offer anybody who is a completely disaster in their life, and their life is a disaster, they are trapped in their ego, man, right?
They're attached. They're attached to
Attached.
not only the outcome they want. Now, God wants us to have goals for outcome.
Yeah.
But we should be surrendering. I want this or better. But what Source does not want us attached to is the path between here and there. Because our human mind has a path that it can create that's limited. Source can see opportunities for a much better path. So
yes,
keep the goal, keep the end goal in mind, keep
yes,
the desire in mind, but
yes,
surrender step by step to a better path.
Yeah, here's another visual I learned decades ago. Ego is the path we're climbing up the mountain. Source is the view from the top. And therefore, we don't know. So to put it in very real terms, if you are stuck right now, if you feel challenged, if you're desperate to change your life, but you don't know what's around the corner, Randy, what do you want to say to somebody who's stuck like that? That is very ego. When we're trying to make something happen, it generally never works. It doesn't for me. And then when I surrender, take it away, just guide me, then things turned out far better than I could have ever planned from ego. What do you want to say to people who are sort of stuck in this attachment to ego?
Ego, and what Eckhart Tolle calls the pain body, always wants to be right. We don't have to be perfect. When we say, okay, I don't have to do this perfectly. I don't know what to do. I'm asking for guidance. I surrender. I'm going to take my steps that are obvious in front of me, but I'm going to look for signs. I'm going to look for signals, and I'm going to be open-minded to see what else can come along. And again, when we try to do it perfectly, we limit ourselves. Now, if I'm building medical equipment or I'm building an airplane, I want to do that perfectly. But if I'm doing emotional growth, I'm not going to do that perfectly.
No, and you're going to do it all your life, folks, once you commit to this. I also think it's a practice that we have to, first of all, sort of be curious about the idea. Once we embrace it and commit to it, it's going to be lifelong because, Randy, we're never, ever going to be without some challenges, right? How do you want to...
That's the game. That's part of the game. Because we wanted that. We asked for that. We opened up the brochure and I said, oh, here I'm going to get bullied in junior high, and then I'm going to break my wrist later. I'm going to break my neck when I'm 7 years ago, I broke my neck. We're going to go through divorce. We're going to go through a lot of other things. And we chose all those when we looked at the menu before we came down here for this live.
Exactly. So not to, as we get to the top of the hour here, not to not talk about the game of life. So just to put it in terms again from your book, you say the game of life is how the law of attraction works, and it is to help us return to our true identity connected to source or God, whatever you call it, folks.
Yes.
So I want people to understand the game of life a little bit. So when we've talked about everything we talked about, and people are like, "Oh wow, oh God," but I don't want the problems. I'm just going out partying, which
How's that working out for you?
Yeah, how's that working out for you? Or I'm addicted to these relationships that don't work, or anything else that feels like discord in your life. Randy, how can they get themselves into a mindset of, oh yeah, this is a game. Think of yourself going around the board game of life. I'm supposed to get back to source. How can they, and that's where the challenge is, and I want to embrace the lessons in the challenges. Really, really in a nutshell, what would you tell them as a first good step, or a beginner who's getting frustrated, how to stay the course?
This is the theme of my book. First, we want an understanding of how the universe works. Then it's great to see examples of somebody else who's used it, and we see it works.
Yep.
So we have an understanding, and then we see by somebody else's example, we see light at the end of the tunnel. And then And then when we see light at the end of the tunnel and we're willing to go down that road, go down that path and take chances and learn new things. But first we have to have something that gives us a sense of safety. And that's what is a big part of my book, is the understanding and the examples provide safety. And once a person is there, then, and I'll give a plug for the book again, chapter 7, I go over 14 different exercises people can do to work towards emotional healing. So intention, understanding, and start doing the work, knowing that it's going to be messy, but it's worth it.
Yeah. And so, Gain audience, get Randy's book, but there are so many books, but I want to make a plug here for those of us who work in the emotional part of it. Again, respect to all the things that were going on in the early 2000s and secret, and law, there were a lot of folks back then, but you said earlier yourself, they were concentrating on the thoughts. Change your thoughts, change your life. The emotional piece has largely not come out in a big way to be worked on. And so we need to bring attention to this. And that's why I was so excited to have you come on the podcast, because we need to do this. I want to also speak again as we round this out. So you say that being emotional is synonymous with being reactive rather than rational. And herein lies the fear of being vulnerable. So in order to embrace everything you talked about, and we've talked about together in this podcast, they got to get vulnerable and emotional, as you said. Tell us, an audience, how they can do this without the fear, because I felt this in my early bereavement for years. You're a nutcase. You're being emotional. You're a train wreck. We're afraid of our emotions. So what would you say to encourage people to not be afraid of the thing that scares the Jesus out of us?
Get a piece of paper and a pen or pencil and start writing out what we're thinking, what we're feeling, the problems we see in life, and the solutions we think we have. And once we're there and our mind is in charge and we're writing out our problems and we're writing the possible solutions, then we can write out what's the feelings underneath it. If we don't identify that feeling, it's going to get louder and louder until we pay attention. And the fastest way to pay attention to our feelings and take the negative energy away from it is to acknowledge it by writing it down. And for left-brain people who want to be in charge, that's easy. For people who are afraid they're going to get stuck in their emotions, they're still operating from a place in their mind. So it's not about making decisions based on emotions. It's not being an emotional mess. That's not the goal. The goal is to be aware, to be fluid and letting it come through, and having the mind be involved. So for me, pen and paper is always powerful.
Yeah. One thing, we're going to close off, but I want to say, and I love, as author to author, plug in our books. So I struggled until I wrote my third book about all my emotions related to my daughter's actual death and choosing to die. And I called it Lessons in Surviving Suicide, a letter to my daughter. And I took a couple years to write that. And that was my absolute emotional, I would say looking it in the face, like you say, and dealing and working through it and then going, wow, that felt, it was a catharsis for me, but also cleared a lot of them. So I do want to reiterate, this is a journey, folks, that when you embrace your stuff, go to the emotion I think there's an emotional wheel you can get as well. I've worked with to go, what am I really emotional about here? And what emotion is it?
I have a workbook that I wrote for myself 3 years ago that my marketing manager said, let's publish this. It's called the Emotional Healing Workbook. I went through about 13 different problems with it. I don't have a copy to show you now, but Randy Lyman, the Emotional Healing Workbook, it is extremely powerful.
Is it on your website, randylyman.com?
There's a link to it on my randylyman.com.
Okay.
It's also available online.
Okay, so there you go. That's a guide and a support, because when we go through emotional stuff, we need something to understand what the emotion is. That is a very big piece, because we are not emotionally literate folks. And so I have pointed people over the last few years to emotional wheels and dig down. But now you got another resource, which is Randy's workbook. Okay, I want to just close this off, Randy. And I want to remind the audience that you see negative experience as necessary contrasts and learning opportunities, no matter how impossible it may seem or how bleak the circumstances. Last tips on and you say winning isn't a singular moment; it's a state of being. So
It becomes a state of being.
so last tip on just getting them started and understanding you don't have to win this thing in one felt swoop or in the next year. It is a lifelong discipline and the rewards are worth it. And I would just like to again state what you think you want today may not be what you actually want or came here to do. Bear that in mind. What are your last thoughts on it, Randy? This has been great.
Be willing to cry the tears, knowing that they will not overwhelm you. They won't take us over. They will, if we avoid the pain, it will take over our life. If we embrace the pain and we feel it, then now we're in charge. And it'll only go as fast as we're ready to go. Never fear the pain. God doesn't give us more than we're ready for. That's my advice.
I believe that as a bereaved parent, we don't get what we didn't come here to handle if we choose to handle it. Randy, we kept this to an hour. It feels like a marathon. So get the book. Listen to this again. We're just giving you surface stuff, just throwing out basically the tools, the wisdoms, the science, the rules. We're just throwing it all in this hour, jam-packed with knowledge, and invite you to just be curious. Somebody I have who channels Einstein says, treat life like a science experiment. Become the experiment. And I love that because that's what curiosity brings us. All right, Randy, we're going to close this off. Any final thoughts? Did you want to talk about anything that I didn't get to?
Well, you already mentioned it. People need to be checking out your podcast. People need to be seeing the work that you're sharing. I'm serious. They need to be seeing the work that you're sharing because you've lived this. You're still living it. And you're a great example to people of what's possible to take a horrific experience and turn it into a growth opportunity and an opportunity also to learn and grow and help others.
Yeah. Well, also, and to you as well, thank you so much for being vulnerable. Thank you. And it's randylyman.com that people can go to. Yes?
Yes, exactly. Lyman, randylyman.com.
Yeah, I'll have the link in the show notes. And there's just so much. So we're out of time on this one. But Randy, thank you for being a wonderful, wonderful guest and great meeting you and chatting. So thank you.
Thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, thanks.